time to time, they transmit either general psychic disruption, you know, where you can't do any readings or anything, or they have been also targeting individuals. This network that we're talking of is essentially a group of radio transmitters spread around the country. And you may hear the output of 3 or 4 transmitters on the same frequency. You can pick on us spatially by looking at the vectors as they come in, that they got maybe 3 or 4 transmitters transmitting at the same time, one into the other, this sort of thing. And they did target an individual that's affiliated with here, where we could actually go in with a handheld detector and pick up the solitons it was creating, and we traced it to this signal. And we had it one night where the signal was locked in on the same associate of ours, and through the use of these receivers, which I don't want to go into how at this point, we removed the targeting from him to the receivers and then disturbed the timing, and so followed up the timing, it went off the air and it didn't come back in that mode for quite a while. This is an interactive signal that picks up something from the point they're transmitting to, because we could actually affect the timing by how you tune the receiver. As you tune through it, you can affect the timing. You probably noticed that, George. As you tune the receiver, you can change it by how you tune the receiver back and forth, and as we turn the dial a little bit. So it is definitely an interactive function. And you were talking about a presence in the room.
Yes, absolutely.
If we turn on this receiver here into this speaker, this is the one that make the presence.
It's a very powerful presence, too.
Yeah.
It feels like you're there.
This is an older design, this receiver. Notice this one, you can feel the energies right from the broadcast.
Yes, it's very warm, it's a velvety sensation, it's right up close to you. These are all vacuum tube receivers.
Yes. This one's older design. This is a Moray design, this one. B. Henry Moray. Of course, we can widen this one out.
The signals are very warm. They feel warm. You know? What I mean by warm is they feel very emotionally dense. In contact. It's almost as if the longer you allow the sound to permeate the room, if you were sensitive to your own thought process, you probably could get flashes of the transmission point. In other words, where the signals are coming from would actually transmit a visual whole image to you. I've experienced that. Have you ever experienced that?
I haven't, but other senses I've been working with can get full pictures.
Yeah. Marvelous.
I'm trying to find something in English.
Now, these signals are being received through the multi-loop?
No, these are long wire.
From the long wire, okay.
Wounded in the shooting at his home near the English Midlands town Stafford on Tuesday.
Yeah, this is BBC.
Here's Mark Doyle.
The former governor of Gibraltar is being treated for gunshot wounds and is said by a spokesperson for the
They have a very nice
General Hospital to be
sends out almost a purely etheric signal.
Really?
Because it comes through very clear.
Yes, it does. That's, I
If you're
noticed
doing
that.
this in a solid state receiver, it wouldn't come in that clear.
Why is that?
Because this receiver is picking up the etheric function or the relativistic function. This receiver is about 1935
whether she
in
bought the
design.
security that she and her husband
Can we focus in?
held senior army positions in West Germany and Belgium should have continued into their retirement.
In civilian life, which is quite possible.
So you'll notice this has something you don't hear in the modern day receivers. Just go stand right under that speaker.
I know it. I can feel it from here. Yeah.
Security for the appointment.
It's a presence. It's almost like a three-dimensional presence.
Not for people telling.
It's like
Yeah,
being
let's
in
widen
the
it
room.
slightly.
And I think now out of office.
Yeah. It's like being right in the room with us.
To fund for ourselves. It's just too expensive to expect people to work maybe.
Lady Betty Terry, speaking for the first time since the attempt on her husband's life.
The leader of the Scottish National Party, Mr Gordon Wilson, has delivered his farewell address at the party's annual conference. Mr Wilson, who is stepping down from the leadership
Is it
of the
possible to
SNP
tune
after
in
11
to
years in
whistlers
office,
and earth
declared
signals?
that for the first
That
time
would
since
be on this
1920,
receiver here.
the party had the potential for a
This
political
receiver isn't
breakthrough.
fully operational
Of the
yet.
72 parliamentary constituencies in Scotland, the Nationalists hold 4.
This is the ELF receiver right here. You
I
want to tune
see.
in the whistlers with the ELF receiver, which is this one.
Yes.
This one isn't fully set up yet.
Okay.
This one still is in process.
Can you demonstrate for us the Rogers antenna versus the aerial?
Okay.
You could do that?
Let's turn this back on, okay?
Sure.
They're seen as an important part of Scotland's heritage.
This is now
and
on
delegates
the
want
above
equal
ground
treatment for
antenna.
brave Scots. Our Scottish Affairs Secretary was in town, as one of the delegates gave a flavour
That's
of
the
the
underground.
language when he announced the
Now
word
you notice
promotion.
it's clearer.
This conference calls
It's
on
weaker,
the
but it's
Scottish
clearer.
office to stand as metal seller
And you'll notice it
of
doesn't
the
fade.
Scots League pass to the Gaelic League.
Okay, this is the Rogers
This is the
antenna.
Rogers.
That motion calls for as much money as Muckle Silla to be given to the Scots language as that recently announced for Gaelic. Atul Cameron, convener of the Scots Heritage Society, who will be speaking in the debate, recognises parity is unlikely.
You remember on the above ground, you can hear it fading in and out.
It is
Sure.
to insist a language distinct
Now
from
this is the same BBC signal we were just listening to.
Scandinavia, England, the Gaelic,
Oh,
and
this
the
is
Order
wonderful.
Alliance with
This is
France.
this is above ground.
Okay. Now there's a different presence to this.
But hear it fading? You can hear like the pacing rolling.
If you say it's their story, that is very much
Here?
more effective than saying...
Yeah, and there's a hollow quality
The
about it.
campaign has nothing to say about the language which once was spoken as far south as Doncaster.
It's a weaker
There
signal.
is a
You can
dictionary
hear the
and a
noise of the
thesaurus
receivers
available
come
to
up.
help academics.
But it's a cleaner signal.
The financial news is
Yes, it's
overshadowed
denser.
by
It's
the
more
gold
solid.
crisis.
It's more
Yes,
in there.
it's
The World
a
Bank
denser
has
More high
signal.
fidelity.
been calculating
High
the costs
five.
of the crisis to
Yeah.
developing
There was a
countries.
deep phase.
Using
That
an
on the
initial
above
sample
ground
of
was a
50
deep
countries,
phase. Here?
it estimates the rest attributable directly to the crisis at $10 this year and double that next year if the crisis
I guess
continues.
faded back
Our
in.
economics correspondent reports from Washington.
The countries which
Yeah, back.
Yeah, you're trying to cash in on the above ground. Yeah.
neighbours, certainly in 1990. The countries which
Yeah, you're trying to cash in on the above ground. Yeah.
neighbours, certainly in 1991, Jordan, Turkey.
Yeah, what I'm sensing in the room is that it's a denser signal. There's more presence to it. It's less hollow than the above ground signal. Okay. Now,
Any transmitter that's grounded will send the signal into the earth that you can pick up.
Okay. The question I have is, does the Rogers antenna come into better clarity with decreasing frequencies?
Because the World
As you get
Bank is
lower,
on the
does it get
assumption that
better?
there will be no solution to the crisis next year. Taking into account the other effects of the crisis, the consequences become
You know,
far
as
worse.
it fades,
These
it gets
include the loss of
differentiated. It's very sharp sounding.
and of the remittances that
Yes.
traditionally had been sent home by foreign workers there. The total cost here reached more than $6,000 million. Apart from the so-called
So we
frontline
finished
states, the main victim is Sri Lanka,
I think
which could see
we've
its national income reduced
more
by
or less
1.5% as
touched
a result
upon
of
it
all the
now.
effects of the
George, do you have anything to add? Okay.
Well, not really.
Maybe a last look
I think
at this
picture is
marvelous
1,000
place.
words.
Yes, indeed.
A lot of work went into this film.
How many receivers do you have here, approximately, Preston?
I don't know, I've lost count.
Wall to wall. Mostly Helicrafters.
Well, this one is a military made by Motorola. This one is a Raycal. This one's a Raycal made in Britain. This is HF, shortwave. This is VHF and little UHF made by Motorola for the government.
Yes.
This is made by Collins for the government. This is VLF receiver.
Yes.
This is an HF receiver. This is also made by Collins for the government. This is a Hammerlin. This is an SP600. This is, you see, is my main receiver. It's so easy to work with and tool.
Yes.
This is another Collins receiver made for the government. This is a Hammerlin. This one is an amazing receiver here. This is a TRF regenerative shortwave receiver made for the government. This is another Hammerlin here.
Yes.
This is another Collins
Yes.
made for the government. This is a national. This is VLF again. And then this is either known as a NEMS Clark, or it's known as a LTV receiver, or it's known as a Watkin-Johnson's receiver.
Okay.
Whatever you want, it's all the same company.
And they're all vacuum tube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this is UHF and microwave, this one here. Although this is the whole range. This one starts at 10 megahertz and goes to 30. This is 30 to 300 megahertz. This is 30 to a gigahertz, 30 megahertz to a gigahertz, and this is 1 gigahertz to 2 gigahertz.
Yes.
These are the ELF twins. These receive ELF. This is made by Federal Telephone and Radio Corporation, pre-World War II, for the government, for the Navy. This is known as an RBA. This is an RBB. This is an RBC. These three make up a whole receiving system that goes from 15 kilohertz to about 27 megahertz.
Right.
This is another British Raycal. This is the tube version of that first receiver I showed you, which was a solid-state Raycal.
Okay.
And then that behemoth up there is out of commission right now.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Moray design?
Well, back in the 30s and the 40s, T. Henry Moray worked as a consultant to the radio industry. He worked mainly for E.H. Scott, Inc. Not H.H. Scott, E.H. Scott. But after he worked for E.H. Scott, he designed the famous Philharmonic, the famous Imperial, those big, massive, grand consoles of the 30s with chrome-plated chassis, and picked up local AM radio stations like their FM and this sort of thing. Later, he went to Hammerlin Inc. and designed the Super Pros.
Yeah.
This is your first Super Pro. The Comet Pro was in the other room, but I have another term for that. I call that the Vomit Pro. This is the first good Hammerlin receiver, and this was designed directly by T. Henry Moray, just as the old Scots were. This has input from Nikola Tesla in it, this one, because Tesla worked for RCA Global Communications.
Can you tell us the years and the name he worked under?
Okay, this is about a 1935 design, so is this.
Okay.
And Tesla, his nephew, who was, I think, William Turbo, hired Nikola Tesla, but hired him under the name Nikola Turbo. If you want to find information on Nikola Tesla RCA, you look for Nikola Turbo. Because when he was hired by RCA, he was in ill repute.
Yes.
The guys wanted to use his genius, but they didn't want his name in the corporation. So he could legally use the name Turbo, so he did.
Yes, this is fascinating. Most people think that towards the end of his life, he was penniless and...
Oh, he was very much different from being penniless.
Tell us about that.
Well, he rented the top floor of both hotels, the New Yorker. He rented the top floor of the New Yorker, and he rented both penthouses on the New Yorker and the Waldorf Astoria. He used one penthouse for a transmitting station and the other penthouse for a receiving station. And he had his lab in the whole top floor of the New Yorker. That's not cheap.
No, I wouldn't think so.
No, it's not cheap to rent the whole top floor in the New Yorker.
Now, you had a direct input into this discovery. You've been doing a lot of archaeology, more or less,
Essentially.
and in radio antiquities. So could you tell us a little bit about that incident, about that time period, how you discovered this?
Okay.